It's Tuesday, August 29. In the headlines, water supply restrictions will continue despite the recent rains. In business news, NCB cuts link jobs in hunt for cash to pay dividend. Regionally, Grenadian Prime Minister reiterates call for UK apology. Internationally, Donald Trump to appeal trial date set in Georgia. And in sports, netball receives funds towards rebuilding her home. This is the news on PBC Jamaica. I'm Simone Absalom Gale. The National Water Commission, NWC, has revealed that storage levels at the two main catchments in the corporate area remain below 40% capacity. The utilities company says despite the recent rainfall, supply restrictions will continue. The Hermitage Dam is at 39.5%, a marginal increase from 37%, while the Mona Reservoir is at 35.8%. According to Acting Corporate Communication Manager at the NWC, Delano Williams, the entity might consider further restrictions for customers served by the Mona Reservoir if storage there does not improve, given that demand for water supply exceeds the supply needed. Minister of Science, Energy, Telecommunications and Transport, Daryl Vaz, is dissatisfied with how the local transport centers are being maintained. He says he has been touring the various areas since taking over the transport portfolio a few months ago.
Did halfway through already. I have done one or two of the transport centers, Ocho Rios and Port Antonio, and it is very clear that the transport center, the maintenance of the transport center is not up to par. And it cannot be that you're asking the traveling public passengers to have to subject themselves to that. The issue is that a number of them are owned by the municipal corporation, so there has to be some kind of partnership with the Ministry of Transport and, of course, the Transport Authority.
Minister Vaz notes the need to maintain sanitary conveniences and other infrastructure within the transport centers.
It can't be just about the buses and new buses. It has to be about a holistic approach of government entities to make sure there's proper sanitary convenience, the proper places clean, the roads. I went to Ocho Rios and the road conditions within the transport center with potholes and drainage issues, etc. Forces people to go outside, which causes obviously indiscipline and illegality.
35 students were recognized for their outstanding performances in the 2023 primary exit profile examinations. The students were recognized at Berts Auto Parts Foundation Scholarship Awards ceremony at the Jamaica Pegasus Hotel. The foundation was launched recently. Marketing manager Waynette Strachan explains the vision behind the foundation.
So the Berts Auto Parts Foundation is our promise to continue to be good corporate citizens, playing our part in the advancement of Jamaica. Our foundation intends to aid the underserved and marginalized through strategic programs and partnerships, such as our inaugural scholarship program that will take on a new form for our 35th year, and our Bill with Berts Charity 5K, for which our partners Food for the Poor will be the primary beneficiary. It is our sincere hope that through this foundation that we'll begin to inspire change and to drive the dreams of ordinary Jamaicans.
Berts Auto Parts Director Bert Tomlinson Jr. encouraged the top performers to strive continuously for excellence and shared his opinion on the significance of education.
If you educate the children of today, you are more likely to have productive adults tomorrow. If you have more productive adults tomorrow, you have a more productive society. If you have a more productive society, you have a better Jamaica for all of us.
He says there is a reason behind the number of chosen scholars.
35 to represent the 35 years that we've been in business. And we are donating a total of $2.5 million to these students. Yes. Our objective is to maximize their potential. Our objective is to help them ascend to the next level.
Education Minister Favour Williams in July said there was a 43% reduction in teacher migration this year, noting that all vacancies were not all permanent positions, as some were created because some educators are on leave. Despite this response to published concerns, the National Parent-Teacher Association of Jamaica, NPTAJ, says in a recent statement that it has taken note of the rate at which Jamaican educators are being wooed by overseas recruiters. It is suggesting the use of term limits for overseas employment and a quota system. The NPTAJ is urging the authorities to, quote, move with alacrity in negotiating with our teachers to reconsider leaving in droves, end quote. The group is suggesting that the authorities revisit the current remuneration package for teachers, dialogue with jurisdictions wooing teachers asking them to agree on a quota system, or consider term limits for overseas employment. It further suggests that retired teachers be re-engaged for attractive offerings, as well as a shift to virtual learning to widen student-teacher contact. Kern Spencer has lost his bid to return as Region 5 chairman for the People's National Party, PNP. Hopton McCarthy, a former chairman of the PNP's Region 5, has been returned as its chairman after voting exercise during a regional executive conference at Knox College, Cobbler campus. Region 5 comprises Manchester and St. Elizabeth. This latest defeat follows Spencer losing his bid to be the party's representative in the St. Elizabeth Northeastern constituency against Zuleika Jess. Do non-sugar sweeteners help with weight loss? Do they pose a risk to your health? What about so-called natural sweetness like stevia? Jason Montes explains the findings from the new World Health Organization report.
So Jason, tell us what's the number one thing we need to know about this WHO report that says non-sugar sweeteners are not all that sweet for our health?
So if you're using non-sugar sweeteners as a way to manage body weight or to improve your health, you may not get the results you're hoping for. The scientific evidence suggests that long-term use of non-sugar sweeteners may not help with body weight control and may increase your risk of developing type 2 diabetes or cardiovascular disease, such as heart disease or stroke.
So Jason, aren't all sweeteners different? What about the sweeteners that are marketed as plant-based sweeteners or natural sweeteners?
So although all non-sugar sweeteners have unique chemical structures, we do not make the distinction in our guidance between individual sweeteners or between natural so-called natural and artificial sweeteners. Our guidance covers both. This is because all sweeteners, including sugar, use the same biological pathway when it comes to how we sense them as being sweet. And consequently, how their use might impact body weight and risk of disease.
So how does this WHO guideline apply to people with diabetes?
So our guidance is for preventing the development of disease, not for treating or managing existing disease, and this includes diabetes. In terms of the process, making recommendations for preventing disease is very different from making recommendations for managing disease. So different evidence needs to be reviewed, and a different assessment in terms of the potential risks and benefits need to be made. And this all has to be done in the context of a larger plan of treatment, which may also include medication and other lifestyle changes. With that said, individuals with diabetes certainly can manage their disease without the use of non-sugar sweeteners, but such decisions need to be made on an individual basis and only in consultation with one's healthcare provider.
So hang on, what are we saying here? Can we go back to sugar?
No, Vismita, that's not what we're saying. It's not okay to go back to sugar. And we're not saying that sugar poses less of a health concern than non-sugar sweeteners. Too much sugar in the diet still poses a significant health risk. And in this context, when we talk about sugar, what we actually mean is free sugars, or what others refer to often as added sugars. So WHO recommends that less than 10% of daily calories come from such sugars, and less than 5% is even better. So what this would mean for a person consuming 2,000 calories per day would be less than 50 grams of sugar, or better yet, less than 25 grams of sugar, respectively.
So I'm trying to reduce sugar in my diet, and it's not easy. But I find that with time, my body is craving sugar less and less. Talk to us about the steps we can take to reduce sugar or added sugar in our diet.
So more foods and beverages than ever contain free or added sugars, non-sugar sweeteners, or both, much of which are hidden in foods that don't necessarily taste sweet, such as bread, soups, salad dressings, potato chips or crisps, and many others. So while it's not always easy, you can reduce your sugar intake without the use of non-sugar sweeteners by reducing the overall sweetness of your diet. So read the nutrition information on packaged goods. Try to introduce more unsweetened foods and beverages into your diet. Replacing sweetened beverages with water or unsweetened beverages is a great start, an easy start.
Time now for the business report with Danita Rodney.
Launched in December 2021, Link has made significant progress over the past 2 years, hitting some $10 billion in transactions while onboarding some 5 million merchants and signing up more than 200,000 users. However, the NCB Financial Group has announced plans to restructure the digital wallet, resulting in a job cut for contract workers. The move is to cut costs and resume dividend payments for investors. The cuts are also likely to affect some department heads, including sales, marketing, and operations, which will be managed by existing teams within the group. Now for your market updates. In foreign exchange trading for Monday, August 28, the US dollar sold for an average of $155.28. The Canadian dollar ended trading at $116.13. The pound sterling traded for $194.85, and the euro sold for $171.94. In JSE trading, the JSE index declined by over 3,340 points. The junior market index declined by over 4 points. The combined market index declined by over 3,153 points, and the All Jamaican Composite Index declined by over 3,967 points. Overall market activity resulted from trading in 102 stocks, of which 28 advanced, 50 declined, and 24 traded firm. Stocks advanced 413 is Student Living Jamaica Limited Viable Preference, Barita Investments Limited, and the Caribbean Cement Company Limited. Stocks declined 4, AMG Packaging and Paper Company Limited, Berts Jamaica Limited, and the Blue Power Group Limited. Trading firm were 138 Student Living Jamaica Limited, CAC 2000 Limited, and the General Accident Insurance Company Jamaica Limited. The overall volume leaders were Wigton Wind Farm Limited Ordinary Shares with over 1 million units, Trans Jamaican Highway Limited USD with over 800,000 units, and Sagicor Select Funds Limited Manufacturing and Distribution with over 600,000 units. In regional stocks, in Trinidad and Tobago, Calypso Microindex Fund was a sole security trading 1,000 shares. On the Barbados Stock Exchange, Insurance Corporation of Barbados Limited was the volume leader with over 19,000 shares. They were followed by Cave Shepherd and Company Limited, which traded 500 shares. In regional business, food inflation in Trinidad and Tobago has decreased from a high of 17.3% in January 2023 to 10.1% in June. More in this report.
The latest economic bulletin from the central bank said slower retail price movements in several major categories of food underpinned the deceleration, which included bread from 19.8% to 15.3% and vegetables from 28.1% to 17.5%. Overall, the central bank noted that headline inflation decelerated from 8.3% in January to 5.8% in June, averaging 6.8% over the 6-month period. This, it said, was mainly due to slower price increases in both food and core inflation. Meanwhile, it said the latest data from the CSO indicates that the unemployment rate fell in the first quarter of 2023, measuring 4.9%, which was slightly lower than the 5.1% recorded a year earlier. The number of people with jobs decreased by 8,100 persons year on year, while the number of unemployed persons fell by 1,600.
In international business, Wall Street's main indexes ended higher ahead of key inflation and jobs data this week that will offer more clues on the Federal Reserve's interest rate path.
The Dow and S&P 500 each gained about 0.6%, while the Nasdaq gained roughly 0.8. Investors digested last Friday's comments from Fed Chair Jerome Powell that the U.S. Central Bank may need to raise interest rates further to ensure inflation is contained. But George Ball, chairman of Sanders Morris Harris, notes that today's rate environment is actually the norm.
People are talking about higher for longer, as if the level of interest rates that we're seeing now is an anomaly. It really isn't. And so strangely, I don't think we should hope to see rates go down. If rates start to go down, it's because something is going wrong in the economy or in the world.
In market data for oil prices crept up as supply concerns from a hurricane hurtling towards the United States Gulf Coast limited bearish sentiments about the possibility of another U.S. interest rate hike undercutting demand. Brent crude edged up 63 cents higher at $85.05 a barrel, while West Texas Intermediate crude ticked up 57 cents to $80.67 a barrel. And that was the business report on PBCJ. I'm Denita Rodney.
In regional news, in Grenada, Prime Minister Dickon Mitchell has recently renewed his call for the United Kingdom to issue an apology for its role in the transatlantic slave trade. More from GBN News.
Prime Minister Dickon Mitchell's request, made during an exclusive interview with British media entity The Independent, comes as part of ongoing efforts to address the historical injustices suffered by the people of Grenada and the wider Caribbean region.
In my mind, if the UK wants to continue being a country that demonstrates that it upholds the values of justice, fairness, democracy, equal treatment of human beings, then to me it should be out front and apologizing for slavery. And reluctance or refusal to do so then sends the opposite message.
Prime Minister Mitchell's call for an apology is not unprecedented. In recent years, several Caribbean nations have similarly called on European countries, including the UK, to acknowledge the atrocities committed during the era of slavery and to take steps towards reparations and reconciliation. The Prime Minister argues that an official apology from the United Kingdom would serve as a crucial step towards healing the wounds of the past and fostering a more inclusive and equitable future.
I think the fact that Rishi Sunak is the Prime Minister of the UK speaks for itself. It tells you how the history of the United Kingdom and perhaps its future is so intertwined to its past in terms of its colonial history, the plurality of British society. All of that comes from the fact that it once colonized India, parts of the Caribbean. We have these cultural wars which are taking place. We have these attempts to sometimes rewrite history if it's not pleasant or if it makes us feel uncomfortable. And we have to remind people, and that's why I say there's a danger in not accepting. And we deserve, frankly, the same rights as everybody else who's been subjugated or treated badly by another group.
The issue of reparations for the descendants of enslaved Africans has been a contentious one, with many arguing that financial compensation is necessary to address the enduring socio-economic disparities faced by marginalized communities. Prime Minister Dickon Mitchell weighed in on the subject.
Reparations is basically having the world accept that slavery, the transatlantic slave trade, the plantation economies that were based on slavery was wrong. And that we need to ensure that that is acknowledged and that corrective measures is taken to treat with all of these significant negative legacies that has arisen as a result of that. I think fundamentally we have to be able to accept that slavery was a crime against humanity. It was a criminal act. We need to have justice for that, and justice takes a number of forms. Material redevelopment of the Caribbean, of Africa, is just part and parcel of that.
It remains to be seen how the United Kingdom will respond to the Prime Minister's request. Slavery had a profound impact on the lives of millions of Africans who were forcibly transported to the Americas. The United Kingdom played a significant role in this dark chapter with its involvement in the buying, selling, and enslavement of African people. Reporting for GBN News, Beverly Telesford.
Still in Grenada, government's free education policy takes full effect within days when new and returning students enter the classrooms. The new policy was extended to the T.A. Marishaw Community College and New Life organization. However, a former minister says that's not enough.
The no school fee policy, which was introduced in September of 2022 and applied to the pre-primary, primary and secondary schools, has now been expanded to include the T.A. Marishaw Community College, TAMCC, and the New Life organization, NULO.
We are delighted as a Ministry of Education and as a government to say to you that we are facilitating your advancement in education with the removal of tuition fees as you go on to access education at TAMCC and further on.
The government said its free tuition program policy will complement other key education initiatives, such as the approval of the UNESCO-funded Technical and Vocational Education and Training Policy. However, former Education Minister Emmeline Pear said the attempt being made by government is insufficient to enable all students to attend classes, particularly those from vulnerable homes.
If that person is going to do a plumbing course at NULO, admission fee $265. 1 year tuition fee for skills, $750. CVQ fees, $450. Tools, $650. Mr. Speaker, when you add this up, the government would be paying $810. The trainee would be paying $1,305.
During Friday's sitting of the lower house, Mrs. Pierre expressed her concern while suggesting how government could address those said concerns.
I am free to say this morning, Mr. Speaker, I'm comfortable saying, let's take $2 million from the $7 million for independence and put it towards this program so that it will not just cover tuition, but it would cover full costs for those persons who will be denied an opportunity to go if they don't have the rest of the funds.
The first phase of the expanded free tuition program will apply to the 2022 secondary school graduates and TAMCC students who are presently completing their second year. Youth Minister Ron Redhead said the policy will assist with the issue of unemployment amongst the nation's youth.
We are taking monies and addressing the access to education through the free tuition at TAMCC and also NULO. If we do, in fact, have an unemployment issue, this is a direct spending by government that is going to help to bolster a young person's ability to get a job.
Cherry and Blackman Stephen, GBN News.
Barbados' Transport Board is contracting local businesses to install systems on their new electric buses. Chief Operations Officer Linda Holder said that despite add-ons like camera systems being available overseas, it is important that where possible, local businesses benefit. Crystal Hoyt has more.
Although all the new electric buses are imported, Barbadian businesses are still benefiting from the Transport Board's investment in upgrading its fleet.
We decided that we will do some of the work here in Barbados. So some of the cameras are being installed in Barbados. The Wi-Fi equipment is being installed in Barbados to make sure that everything was not done overseas. And we kept some business here. So once that is done, we'll be able to deploy these buses.
Randy Aline is the system manager at Protect Inc. He's tasked with installing the cameras on the buses and explains why they prove to be useful on the public service vehicles.
We have installed over 40 systems in the electric buses currently. That includes 3 cameras per bus and an MVR system. The good things are the placement of the cameras. One is to the front, which can help in viewing accidents or any collisions. One is viewing at who enter or exit the bus, and the third one sees what happens inside the bus. That way you can have more control and you can view if any incidents occur in or around the bus.
He adds that the installation of these systems will assist the Transport Board in maintaining the buses.
The MVR system gives the user the fleet management aspect of it. Transport Board now can track the vehicles, the distance they travel, and which can help with maintenance and when the vehicle can be pulled on or off the road. So in aspect they could do the tire wear on the vehicles, how far they travel, the tire wear will look like. And speaking of the tire management, Transport Board now can more effectively monitor the tire usage on the tires, which will help later down the road in the inventory of the tires and which buses need changing and stuff.
The new electric buses are expected to be on the road this week. Crystal Hoyt, CBC News.
In international news, critical court dates have been set in 2 criminal cases in the United States, accusing former President Donald Trump of seeking to derail the results of the 2020 election that he lost. Al Jazeera has the details of that story.
Donald Trump's calendar is filling up. The former US president found out his arraignment on election interference charges in Georgia will be September 6th. And at this courthouse in Washington, it was decided he will go on trial for conspiring to steal the 2020 presidential election on March the 4th next year. The decision came in a hearing that lasted just over 90 minutes. Donald Trump's defence wanted to delay the process by more than 2 years, saying with millions of documents to review, they wanted a trial date in April 2026. The prosecution wanted to proceed on January the 2nd next year. The judge, Tanya Chutkin, said both dates were unacceptable, both outside the normal windows for scheduling a trial. Donald Trump's team accused the prosecution of pursuing a show trial, but left without making any comment on the outcome. The decision by Judge Tanya Chutkin could upend the 2024 Republican presidential nomination fight. The trial starts the day before Super Tuesday, when voters in more than a dozen states cast their ballot in the primary races, and comes just 3 weeks before Donald Trump will be back in court in New York, charged with paying hush money to an adult film star.
I think going into Super Tuesday, I think their minds will already be made up. And I think these court cases are not going to sway primary voters one way or the other. They already know who Donald Trump is, and many of them have already gotten behind him.
On his Truth social media platform, Donald Trump wrote, "Today, a biased, Trump-hating judge gave me only a 2-month extension, just what our corrupt government wanted. I will appeal." Trump insists the cases, the charges against him are election interference and he is innocent. Now, he has a firm date of when he gets the chance to prove that. Alan Fisher, Al Jazeera, Washington.
In sports, Sunshine Girls netball player Latanya Wilson will be receiving $1 million to go towards rebuilding her house, which was destroyed by fire last week. The fire, suspected to be the work of arsonists, destroyed several homes along Rum Lane. Residents were said to have been awakened by loud explosions and discovered their dwellings on fire. 7 families, comprising adults and children amounting to 30, lost their homes in the fire. The 21-year-old athlete is quoted saying, "It's a start, and I really appreciate it, and I'm hoping to see more sponsors coming on board as well," end quote. She further quote, "It is a really big donation, and I am really grateful and happy that they have come on board to donate in such an unfortunate time. This will definitely be a starting point in terms of getting us somewhere to live, and eventually that will lift the mood of everyone," end quote. Jamaica Olympic Association, Supreme Ventures Limited and Mayberry Investment Limited say they will be making the donation. And that's the news on PBCJ. You can follow us on our social media platforms at PBCJamaica. Thank you so much for watching.